Hello, my name is Sierra Fisher. I'm going to be sharing my text set for a high school genetics unit. So first I'm going to go over the 8 pieces of literacy that I have selected for this text set. Then we're going to discuss some literacy routines and writing activities, as well as some assessment data that I will be collecting using this. So my first piece is called Meiosis. This is from the CK12 Foundation, and this would be considered a target text because it is a little more dense. This is an informational article that describes the steps of meiosis 1 and 2, including crossing over. It describes the number of chromosomes that humans have, and that we get half of our DNA from each parent via sexual reproduction. My second piece is called Cheetahs on the Brink of Extinction again. This would be considered an accessible text because it is a little bit more pop culture. It's like an interest piece from the National Geographic Society. This article describes the genetics of cheetahs and the historical bottleneck events that have greatly reduced the genetic variety in cheetahs. It explains how scientists know that cheetahs are genetically similar and why inbreeding is dangerous to a population's genetic diversity. The third piece of reading that we'll be using is another accessible text. This one is called Decoding Genes with Axiom Super Scientist. So this is great because it's a graphic novel. It follows scientist Max Axiom as he shows the genotypes and phenotypes of different organisms. He talks to Gregor Mendel about his findings, visits the inside of a cell as shown modeled like a factory. He shows a karyotype and shrinks down to explore the structure of DNA. It also shows a bear phylogeny and Max going on some different adventures. So this is a little bit of a lower level text that would be more accessible to a lot of students and also very interesting. The next text is called Inheritance Patterns. This would be an informational text. It outlines the major inheritance pattern found in genetics, describes the major characteristics for each pattern, and it provides a helpful chart that also does the same. Next, we have a video by the Amoeba Sisters, who are a really great resource that does videos about science. This one is called Alleles and Jeans. So this is a visual but also an informational. The video explores genetics and links this to students' experiences with the ability to taste PTC. It clearly outlines that chromosomes are strands of DNA and how people get half from each parent. So I actually used this resource when I was lesson planning when I needed a little bit of clarification. So I found it very helpful and I think students would as well. Next we have another visual. This is a video called How Mendel's Pea Plants Helped Us Understand Genetics, and it's by Ted Ed. It's a very cute video, and it demonstrates what Mendel observed with his pea plants and how that can be used in Punnett squares and show the inherited traits. Next, we have a diagram that I would use with students. This source is to be determined because you can get a variety of these off the internet or from any textbook, which it compares mitosis with meiosis. So ideally I would like to have one that has a little more text than the one in this photo, but this would be very helpful and allow students to compare the process of meiosis, which is imperative to sexual reproduction and genetics, with the process of mitosis, which they will have already encountered in an earlier unit at school. Lastly, we have an article that's called Genetics 101. This would be another target text because it is a little more dense. It describes genes, chromosomes, DNA, and cells, describes mutations as a type of genetic disease, and gives examples of the different types of genetic mutations, such as insertions and deletions. It shows how inheritance and inheritance patterns are a means for disease transmission. And lastly, it presents an overview of genetic variation within humans in that we are 99% similar but that variation can be seen through things such as blood types. On my next slide, we have an annotated bibliography done as a chart. If you click on the link below, when you see the actual presentation, then you can go to this as a Google Doc. So some literacy routines for this text set. The first one would be a free write / think write about personal connections and thoughts about the readings, which this is a type of writing that would be used to reflect. It would be writing to reflect activity. And I think it would help students make personal connections with things that they already know with the new material. Next, we would use differentiation and scaffolding through peer collaboration. This would enhance student writing and classroom relations as well. This could be done in a variety of ways, but the one that came to mind for me was the jigsaw technique. So students are in differentiated groups. They all have a different piece of writing that they become an expert on, and then they go and meet with individuals from other groups to share what they learned. The third literacy routine for this text set would be authentic reading and writing, to make students adopt science mindsets and stimulate disciplinary interest. So for science, this could include a lot of different types of authentic reading and writing. Some of the ones that we already saw are the readings that are authentic, but then the types of writing that they would do might include reviews on popular press articles, or news briefs, or emails that are being scientific and educational about the things that they have learned, so informing others. Next, we move on to the different writing activities that could be done. So one that I really love is the thought of graphic organizers, particularly a compare and contrast one, such as a Venn diagram. So some of the ways that they could use this would be such as the mitosis and meiosis comparison using the diagram. So they would use the diagram to find information to put into their Venn diagram. They could also do this with different types of inheritance patterns, genotype versus phenotype, dominant versus recessive genes, etc. So this is very versatile that they could do it in a lot of different ways. And Lent states that writing within science, words may be minimal, used in conjunction with illustrations, charts, drawings, or data. So this would be a perfect example of that. They would most likely be doing bullet points inside of their Venn diagrams. So the next writing activity would be paraphrasing, and this could be done in a lot of different ways that are low stakes or high stakes. Personally, I would do low stakes and formative, such as a science notebook or log. This could also be daily or weekly worksheets, packets, exit tickets. And one thing to keep in mind when paraphrasing is using open-ended questions to help the students put things into their own words as opposed to just copying the text or using quotes from it, because we really want them to be incorporating some of the other information that they've learned. Another way that I could help them with their paraphrasing is using challenge questions if necessary. So, why do you think that the author said it this way? Or how did you identify the main idea when you were paraphrasing? Alright, so next we're going to move on to assessment data. So the different kinds of assessment data that I would gather, I think the most important thing to me would just be to use this as like a study tool. So seeing what students are understanding the strongest. So areas that maybe I didn't teach them as well as I had originally thought. so that we could strengthen these during study sessions at the end of the unit. So an idea that I had for that was using Jeopardy or online study cards. So getting this assessment data would really just help me know where to focus. Also, some of the data that we could gather from maybe some of those like paraphrasing writing assignments could be useful in portfolios at the end of the school year or at the end of the semester as really a reflective tool for the students. And then lastly, assessment data could be used by the school and by the teacher, myself, to improve future instruction just for next year or next semester, especially at my internship school where we switch students every quarter. Alright, so here are my references. Hope you enjoyed the presentation and have a great day.